Oh, and
The cesspool.
No, I know. It's really sad.
Okay, is everybody ready? Charlie's getting hooked up, so he'll be fine in a minute or two, or by the time the meeting's over.
Oh, good, it's gonna be a short one.
What, you're not gonna talk much? You walked right into that, I'm sorry, guys. You can't
Okay,
throw me a.
where's my gavel?
Get control of this meeting.
Okay, good afternoon, directors. First one, acknowledge that we are meeting here today on the Lac-Quiltac People's Territory. And I would see that we have a confirmation of a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. Adoption of public agenda. Just have one addition under appointments. I missed out on one appointment under the Coastal Community Network, which should be Director Abram. So when we get to that, I'll just add that underneath the appointment list, please.
so moved with amendment.
Thank you.
Second.
Director Cornfield, and I
Second.
think it was Director Davis. Sorry, Colburn, Cornfield. I'm out of practice here, directors. I have 3 directors in the room, the CEO and Mr. Yates and staff. I haven't seen so many people in this room in about 16 months, so it's nice to see.
You saw it.
Anyways, anyone opposed to the adoption? Hearing none, carried. No petitions, delegations. Adoption of the minutes for November 17th, please.
Move adoption.
Director Lee,
Wally.
Director Wally, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Any business rising? Hearing none. No public considerations, notice of motions. Chair's report, first item, external agency report, appointments. Motions, receive the report.
So moved.
Director Lee,
Second. Here.
Director Baker. Any discussion? These are my suggestions, so if there's anything
I
of the
just
ordinary.
have one comment, Mr. Chair.
Director Lee, go
as
ahead.
I always do. I am the SRD appointee to the library board.
Yes,
And under the Library Act, trustees are not supposed to receive remuneration, or we can get expenses if we travel, but not remuneration. Under the Library Act, we are supposed to provide our services on a volunteer basis. And so I don't think that I need be included in that motion about remuneration and expenses. I've always done it for free as a public service.
okay, we'll see you.
So, Mr. Chair, in remuneration.
Can hardly hear Dave.
That one.
Have we lost sound?
Just one sec.
Oh, there it's on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm.
Director Cornfield, turn your mic off if you're not talking.
How did I turn it on?
Just press it up.
You can just leave it off, Charlie.
That one's working.
Oh, can everyone hear me now?
Yep.
I can hear a voice. Who's speaking?
It's Dave Leach.
Hi.
So just wanted to comment on the director remuneration. It outlines
the expenses that directors can make, they don't have to. So I would suggest that the resolutions stand as they are, and Director Lee does not have to make a claim for her meeting expenses when she goes to the library board.
Well, I would like clarification for the next meeting then about this issue, because I do know that the Library Act states that trustees are not to be remunerated, although I'm pretty sure that some trustees do get remunerated from their local government. So I would just like to have clarification on that for the next meeting, not now.
Okay, just. Sure.
There's no meetings of the library board until January, so there's time to figure it out.
Sure, and just as a reminder, we do not process meetings automatically. They have to be claimed for them, so if there's no claim,
Right.
there's no pay.
Right, but I'd just like some guidance on what is standard practice throughout local government regarding remuneration to library trustees.
Okay. Go. Anything else on report? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Everyone opposed? Carried. Item B, that the appointments outlined in December 3rd, 2021 report be confirmed with one addition for Director Abram.
So moved, Abram.
Second, Wally.
Go. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And C, the payment of meeting enumeration and travel expenses be authorized for director appointments made at the December 8th, 2021 meeting, except where provided by external organization. Moved by
Abram.
Dr. Abrams, second by
Lee?
Dr. Lee. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item D, the payment of the meeting remuneration and travel expenses be authorized for Director Abram and the Fisheries and Oceans, Marine, Fin, Fish, Agriculture Management Advisory Committee were not otherwise provided.
So moved.
Director Lee, second. Director Abram,
Davis.
any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Next item, committee chair, oh, sorry, go back. Under chair's report, sorry, I've got a couple quick ones. Sat in on the VHOG monthly roundtable last week. It's kind of old news, as you know, as we know, COVID's updated daily. At this time, no, Dr. Stanwick is now retired now. It was his last meeting. He's retired. And they spoke on outbreaks in the island area are now over, and vaccination numbers of the 19 to 29-year-old are much better, but the 30 to 50-year-olds are still very low. So the same message, please get vaccinated. I attended the forest rally here in Cam River. It was well attended. I estimated between 200 and 250 people. Mayor Wickstrom, Mayor Adams, and myself an opportunity to address the crowd, as did our MLA. I did have the opportunity to ask a question to the MLA, and it was just basically, would she please try and set up a meeting with the Premier, the Minister of Forest, herself, and the North Island mayors to discuss the ongoing issues in the forestry industry, and which she replied she would. Next meeting attended was the Comox Strathcona Waste Management meeting. Tina McLean from our regional district did a great presentation on the First Nations acknowledgements. Well done, Tina. Everything was well received from the board. And I was on a small community paramedic just on Monday. Director Colburn sent her well wishes that she could not make it. She was not feeling well that day. Director Abram was on the call, Director Anderson was on the call, and myself. And it was a good discussion about some ongoing issues. Well, actually, sorry, Director Davis was there too. basically on Quadra Island and Cortez. Things are right now, knock on wood, good in Gold River. And Tass's biggest concerns from Director Davis is the ongoing issue with more doctor time there. So it was a good meeting.
Sayward was on the call as well.
Sorry, yes, you were. Sue Paulson was on the call too. Sorry. And that's all I got for Chair's report. So, motion receive. Director Copeland, Director Cornfield,
One
Second
comment,
Baker.
please.
moved to second, go ahead, Director
Comment.
Abram.
Yeah, I'll second it, but I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just, you mentioned the forest rally and requesting our MLA to set up a meeting as soon as possible with a number of people. You named North Island mayors, but I believe it should also include regional district chairs, because the only representatives that the electoral areas have that would be equivalent to a mayor would be our chair.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
represent us.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you would be there anyway as mayor of Gold River, but
Correct.
you would have to wear hats.
that's,
Sorry.
and Director Abram, when we're on these meetings with North Island mayors, I carry both hats, yes. But you are correct. So I'll represent
Okay, great.
both parties.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Call question on report then. Anyone opposed? Okay, none carried. Committee chair report. First Nations Relations Committee. Motion received.
Minutes in the regular meeting, First Nations.
Move receipt.
Director
Second.
Cornfield and Director Davis, I believe. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. The Municipal Service Committee meeting for November 17th. Motion received.
Move receipt, Evans.
Director Evans, second. Director
Second,
Colburn.
James.
Gil, any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Under staff reports, first item, cultural awareness training for elected officials. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, second. Director Moglove, thank you. And the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to make a couple comments on the dates here. Chatting, can you hear me again?
Sound again?
Oh, man. Oh, sorry, having some mic troubles here. So just want to make a couple comments on the recommendations and the dates in there, and in chatting with Tina, is that we've had some significant interest in the Building Bridges Workshop from local governments other than the Strathcona Regional District. And I believe Tina wants to keep both those dates open to accommodate all the folks. So in the recommendation, the Building Bridges scheduled for, it is her hope that January 25th and February 2nd are both included in that. And of course, the other week is May 2 to 6 or 9 to 13. Either one of those is still relevant, whatever the board would decide. But we would like to keep both those dates available in January and February for the Building Bridges.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Director Abram.
Yeah, sorry. I don't see any of those dates on my agenda. Do we have those dates somewhere that are written down?
They're in the report, Director Abram.
Oh, in the item under the CAO's report?
Yes, the Cultural Awareness Training Report.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I mean. Okay, so I was looking at the blanks and I'm wondering, I don't see dates, but okay, so if they're in there, then that's fine. Thank you very much for the information.
Okay, thank you. Director Colburn.
I'm just wondering, oh, sorry. I'm just curious if then the directors would have a choice of those dates, when those dates were available, if Tina would coordinate that.
Yeah, yes.
And Director Walter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are these going to be virtual meetings in January?
No, they're in-person meetings.
Okay, it's unlikely you'll get full attendance on an in-person meeting in January.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I would agree. I would agree with that.
It's up to the directors. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question.
I have a question, actually. It's Director Lee.
Okay, can you please
Are
put your
these-
hand up so I can see it? Thank you.
Sure. I'll
ahead, go
try.
ahead.
There I go. Okay, are these being convened as committee of the whole, or are they just volunteer volunteer meetings?
If it's the will of the board, we can certainly make them committee meetings.
It's a full day, so personally, I would prefer February 2nd. And it would be nice if it was online rather than in person due to the pandemic.
Okay, well, both dates are needed.
Oh, both January 25th and February 2nd and March. There's another one in March.
Yeah, it's different training, and that's in May, actually. So there's two dates. Our hope is that you keep both those dates, January 25th and February 2nd, and therefore directors will have the option of attending one or the other. The May is a different training, so the week of May 2nd or 9th is for different training.
Okay.
It's 25th and the 2nd of February?
25th of January and February the 2nd. They're in the report.
Yes, I see that, but I'm just clarifying from what Dave just said. And I for the first time, heard attend one or the other. So we're not expected to attend both?
Yes,
Correct. As in the report, it's a one-day workshop that you would attend on either the 25th or the 2nd.
Okay, and is there going to be an option to attend them? I know you already mentioned that it's not going to be a virtual meeting, but is there an option to make it a virtual meeting?
Having attended myself, these are training sessions that cannot be held virtually. They're in-person meetings, so no, there won't be an option for them virtually.
Okay, because that cuts me out, that's all.
Okay, any other discussion? Director Adams.
Sorry, no, I think my question was just answered with Director Abrams' question of confirming that they are in person. If they are, I also won't be attending, which is unfortunate, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on receipt? Director Davis.
Muted.
Can't hear you.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm not sure if I can attend or not, if it's in person, just due to medical issues, it remains to be seen, so I can't commit at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
I'm still waiting for my boosters. I should have it in December, but I don't know.
Got quite an echo there.
Okay.
Think of anything else. That's off. Fixed it. Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would like to propose that the board authorize this.
There's a
full day-
motion on the
full
floor
day-
already.
Okay, I'll have a subsequent.
We're just on receipt. Is there anything else on receipt? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And then we got item B, that the Building Bridges Workshop be scheduled for January 25th or February 2nd, 2022.
Director Mogul, I'll make that motion that it would be scheduled for either January 25 or February 2nd.
Second.
Moved in second, moved in, oh, correction, yours off, Charlie.
I meant to say and/or as opposed to or. 'Cause it's-
Okay, moved by Director Mogul, second by Director Cornfield. Any discussion? Director Lee, you have your hand up. Is that from previous?
No, I'll do my subsequent after we deal with these first two things.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't know, should I want to see that these, the full day workshops are considered to be a committee of the whole rather than a workshop. And can I put forward an amendment to change the word workshop to committee COW?
Take that as a friendly, I don't mind.
Okay. So anyone who does put at least a full day or more into this will be remunerated.
I'm just curious if that changes the availability for others. No, never mind. I'm going to withdraw.
Okay, friendly amendment to move to committee of the whole. Director Cornfield.
Just, if it's called a workshop, would directors not be remunerated?
No.
No, the remuneration bylaw requires it to be a committee or board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call questions. Anyone?
Yes, I did have my hand up, Mr.
Sorry,
Chair.
Director Anderson, go ahead.
Thanks. I just understood from staff that we're holding both days open because there was interest from other local governments. So I'm just not sure if we're doing a committee of the whole. And then it is indeed, maybe we don't even have quorum on any given day because there's half and half and some people not coming and other people from other local governments. It doesn't seem like maybe the appropriate format. So I'm just asking for more information about what other attendees there might be other than SRD board directors.
I'm not sure what relevance it is, what other attendees will be there. It's open for other attendees, so we will hold it as a committee of whole. We will poll folks to see what days are available for them. And if there isn't enough members from the committee of the whole to hold a quorum, then we will advise them of that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item C, the First Nation Governance and Relationship Building Workshop scheduled 2081, all directors for the week. Well, January 25th or February
Move the
2nd.
recommendation with the same amendment,
Hang on.
that it be
Brenda.
considered not a workshop, but a cow.
Brenda, please wait till I recognize you.
Oh, sorry.
CEO.
It's delay, I think it's just a delay.
No, you've got your microphone on, only one was on.
Mr. Chair, so there's an option here the week of May 2nd or the week of May 9th. This one is one or the other.
Gotcha, thank you, sorry. So item C is the First Nation Governance and Relationship. Director Mogul?
Yes, I'll move that the First Nations Governance and Relationship Building Workshop be scheduled for the week of May 2 to May 6.
Second.
Got a seconder? Go. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to move the same amendment that I did for the building bridges, that the word workshop be replaced by committee of the whole.
We'll take it as a friendly.
Second.
Okay, thank you, committee of the whole. Any further discussion? Director Davis?
Yes, I have council on the earlier date, so I won't be able to make that one.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
One question, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Go ahead.
There, got my hand up. Is this also going to be an in-person versus virtual?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I will not be attending that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 4, First Nations territorial acknowledgement. Motion received and report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally. Seconder.
Second.
Director Baker, and I'll go to CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the chair alluded to, this is the same First Nations territorial acknowledgement that I believe you saw at Solid Waste in the last week or two. And this comes as a recommendation from the First Nations Relations Committee after we've had a few comments and rounds of it. So this is the finished product, if you will, from the First Nations Relations Committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the report? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item B, the policy CP 031, First Nations territorial acknowledgement, be approved by the regional board. Mover?
So moved. Moglove.
Second.
Moved by Director Moglove, second by Director Adams, and discussion, Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move an amendment that the word unceded be deleted from the territorial acknowledgements.
Second.
And if I could speak to that, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sure that you're all aware that when the provincial government negotiators came and made a presentation to the board, they were very careful not to use the word unceded. I know that First Nations promote this. Provincial government, I understand, does not. And I think we are in risky territory by doing that. I think there could, in the future, potentially be legal consequences to using that term. So I think that we're on safer ground not to use it.
Okay, thank you. Director Moglove.
Thanks, and I respectfully disagree. The fact of the matter is the territories are unceded. It's a fact. So I have no problem using that term.
Director Colburn.
Any of my conversations that we've had at the village with the Ihatasat First Nation, whose territories, unceded territories we are on, that was the preference from them, and really the relationship building I think that was formed during that would not, I wouldn't consider not using it.
Thank you, Director Colburn. And Director Jules.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm not too sure where. I've never heard that before. At every meeting I've been to, I've never heard anyone with this. So this is, I'm just saying it's a first for me to hear.
First, that you've heard that it's unseated?
No. The first I've heard anyone not wanting to acknowledge that it's unseated.
Okay, thank you for your clarification. Director Abram.
Yes, thank you. I have no, I'm not suggesting that it's inappropriate. I'm just suggesting that in the treaty process, the official treaty process, that until the negotiations take place and it's decided which territories are which, as to which group or which area of the group or whatever, until that time, then that's why the provincial and federal people were nervous about using the wording, because it presupposes something that they are still supposedly negotiating. And since we are a part of that provincial negotiating team, we should probably follow what the province does.
Okay, so I've got Director Cornfield, but just before I go to Director Cornfield, I think if all our directors that were on the waste management meeting, last week with Tina there, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, she did state that before moving forward with any of these unceded territories, that she would have written confirmation from the Mashlet or the Wee-Wee-Kai or the Wee-Wee-Kum that those words were actually okay. Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed where there was examples, and the examples on page, I'm not sure which one it is, page 10 of 11. It uses unceded there. I would like to acknowledge I'm moving from the unceded territory. When I had gone through it earlier, I did not see where it used unceded as in the examples given, which I have no strong feelings either way. The only exemption I would see to that is if we were using Cayuga-Checklisset, because they have a signed treaty. And so I'm assuming, and maybe, Director Jules could confirm that if you've got a treaty, it would be considered ceded, not unceded.
What we say is we treaty settlement land, TSL.
Oh, sorry, I just had one more comment, and that's, I think it's under the definitions, policy, general number 2, it says the form of territorial acknowledgement will generally be as follows. On behalf of the Strathcona Regional District, I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional territory of the blank First Nation. Makes no reference to ceded in the policy. And so I think we probably still have some more work and discussion to go on that, because our policy should reflect the actual statement. It says the same thing under number 3, responsible for delivering the territorial acknowledgement remotely. It says, I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking today from, that is within the traditional territory. So, oh, sorry.
And Mr. Yates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the policy itself, under the sections 2 and 3 referenced by Director Cornfield, I believe those were left blank in anticipation that there could be some variation between different territories, and some may be unceded, some may be ceded. And I think that's why it was left blank rather than being a uniform statement regarding the status. So that's the reason why that is shown with a blank space, I believe.
Director Cornfield?
Just in response, we only have one that fits those criteria. And so I think our policy should be direct, and I think maybe we need to have some more direction on this and get that cleared up.
And the CEO?
Happy to refer us back to First Nations Relations Committee, but what we did, Edie, if you could scroll up there, we gave, in lieu of those blanks there, we gave examples of what the specific acknowledgement would be in each territory in the color diagram. So where those blanks are, Tina has consulted with the appropriate First Nation and plugged in. You can see there is a variety of them. There is for the Cayuga-Checklisset. It doesn't say unceded, it says treaty lands. Some say unceded, but that was the intent, that those statements would be the plug and play for the policy blanks above.
Okay, thank you. And I'm gonna go to Director Adams and then Abram. Director Adams.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Leach, because I was looking at those pages of the corporate policy, and on page 4 of 11 in our agenda, it's very clearly, well, actually page 5, it's very clearly stating that I would acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territory. So that's what I was going on items 1 through 5. And then you've got a different thing on the table that you just showed, which is on page 6, and then something different after that. And I tend to agree with Director Cornfield that maybe we need to go back on this because the report is providing two different things, and I don't think there's clarity on which is which.
So are you making the motion to refer, Director Adams?
At this point, no, I'm just pointing out that will have difficulty engaging in the subsequent motion based on what the report is presented to us, and I think it needs more discussion, but I'll leave that up to the board.
Okay, thank you. And Director Cornfield?
Yes, my apologies as chair of the First Nations Relations Committee that it slipped past us. And I would move that this item be referred back to the First Nations Committee for additional work and clarification so that policy aligns with printed word.
Have a second?
Second that, Davis.
Thank you. So on referred,
On referral.
okay, so on referred motion, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed?
Just a moment, Mr. Chair, could we speak to this?
Director Wally, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question. I wonder if we could have staff get an opinion from the provincial government on what they feel is appropriate, so we have a little more information.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'll call question on referral then. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Next item 3, Northwest Vancouver Island Sasami mapping. Motion to receive the report. Director Cornfield. Director Colburn, thank you. And the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Sean will speak to this.
Through the chair to the board, Northwest Hydraulics Consultants is requesting a couple more months to conduct some more public education sessions virtually and stakeholder engagement on the findings from phase 1 of this project. They're not asking for any additional more funding, and the Union of BC Municipalities has approved this extension, but as it will require a modification to our contract, it requires board approval.
Thank you, Mr. Koopman. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, the chair and corporate officer be authorized to execute a modification to the contract.
Move the recommendation.
Director Lee, thank you. Second. Director Colburn, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 4, team incorporation funding alternatives. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, second.
Kerr.
Director Kerr, and I'll go to CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So based on the board's direction at last meeting, what we've done is taken the request from the aeromedical group and provided the board with a number of options and what the financial implications would be in either the 2021 or 2022 budget. And happy to answer any questions or again, come up with another funding amount if that's the board's will.
Thank you, CEO. And Director Kerr.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll have a subsequent as soon as this is passed.
Go. Any discussion on receipt? Director Cornfield.
This would be a one-time only grant?
Correct.
And Director Abram.
Yeah, just wanted to thank our CAO for a fairly comprehensive report and pointing out one thing I'm having a hard time finding here, that that overlap of funding opportunities was the gist of it, and that if there is an overlap, that it could jeopardize the other funding opportunities that the TEAAM group might be applying for. So we should be very cognizant of that and careful as to what we submit. And it seems like submitting something, if we were to, at the lower end would cause less chance of that overlap dilemma.
Any? Okay, thanks, Director Abram. Any other discussion? See none, I'll call question. Director Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wrote down a note here to say that since this service relies heavily upon medical personnel from Island Health to support it, that I believe that we should be referring or talking to Island Health about how they will support this service if we were to offer any grant and aid or funding from our regional district to get it started. Because I don't see that in here, and without Island Health on board, I don't know that they're going to be doing too much in the long run. So I would like to refer this issue to Island Health for their input, and then bring it back up in January when we have our grants and aid and whatnot refreshed, and our 2022 budget refreshed.
Okay, and I've got Mr. Sean, you're online?
Yes, I am. I just wanted the opportunity to answer that question for Director Lee. The program is actually fully staffed right now, 100% with volunteers. So, you know, they're all medical professionals and qualified paramedics currently working in the area, and this will be covered on their time off. So they won't be pulling any resources from Island Health. And if anything, it's actually, from what we found, it's a sought after program. So it's pulling young medical professionals to the area because they want to be part of the program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Okay, just a sec, Brenda. The reason Sean's on there is he was asked to come on in case there was questions that the board of directors had to him. Okay, Director Kerr?
I'm just going to make a subsequent once we receive this.
Okay, Director Cornfield.
Could staff explain to me the difference between the 2021 grant and the 2022 process?
Theo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Strathcona Regional District doesn't have a regional grants and aid service. So typically every year we have folks come to the board requesting funding for a variety of things. And we don't have it budgeted for, but we'll take it out of general admin because that's the only landing spot we have in there. So if it was funded in 2021, it would come out of general admin. My recommendation is that because this happens every year multiple times, that the board establish a regional grants and aid function that we can populate instead of just robbing from general admin, putting it in its appropriate spot. So if the funding came out of 2022, net there would be no difference to the regional district budget, but we would create a regional grants and aid function and money would come out of there because we populate the general government budget with appropriate funding opportunities. So the requests come in, we're not budgeted for. We just kind of fit them in with hopefully a surplus we have. So again, my hope is that it comes to the 2022 budget and we create a regional grants and aid service.
Okay, so would we establish the grant and aid function in 2021 and then expend it in 2022? Or could we establish and award money in the same year, like 2022?
Yeah, we'd establish the function in 2022 and expend the money in 2022. What, again, we would likely do if the board supported creating a regional grant and aid service, we would fund it, and I'm assuming there's a need for the money immediately. We would fund it out of general admin, and then we would repopulate that money out of the service.
Okay, thank you. And Director Adams.
Thank you. And just wanting to confirm, in the report, it says that there is a funding goal of 350,000. And on the table that's provided is different levels of 50,000, 100,000, 175,000, and 350,000. I can only assume that Aeromedical are putting a call out for corporations, businesses, other regional districts to also contribute. Would that be correct? And if so, then while the table goes from a percentage up to 100%, 100% would be put all of the funding requirement on the Strathcona Regional District.
Augustino.
Yeah, Director Adams is correct. So just tried to give you a variety and just some relevance of what the entire amount, not presuming that the board would supply that, but just trying to give you some perspective of what the full amount is and what 50,000 would be. Again, these are just 4 options. Happy to entertain anything else the board has, but just try to give you, again, some relevance on what the contributions would mean to per home in the regional district.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you. And any other first-time speakers? I don't see any. Director Abram.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the possibility of doing it as general admin in 2021, or establishing a service in 2022 and taking it out of there if we are to give anything. And I would suggest that establishing a service will take some time. We've tried before with others, and it's taken numerous meetings before we've come to a conclusion. So I'm in favor of helping this group because of what they do and the need that we have in this area. But I think if we were to take, say, as an example given of $50,000 at the low end, that would help leverage money or leverage money out of other organizations to also maybe put in $50,000 or $100,000 out of the general administration budget this year. So it would give them the money now rather than have to wait 2, 3, 4, who knows how many months to establish a service of a regional nature. So once this has gone through, I would depending on what Director Kerr has to offer in the way of a motion, I would make a motion.
Okay, I'm going to go CO for a sec.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, establishing the service is something I think it's appropriate because, again, in 22, I'm going to assume that somebody's going to come forward with a request. It will not inhibit the transfer of funds, whatever that may be from the board. There'll be no delay in that. It's December. It would come out in January 2022, as I said, out of general admin. When the service was established, we would just repopulate the money in general admin, and we'd identify that in the 2022 budget.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Have the receipt. Seeing none carried. Director Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to make a motion, and then I'm going to have to run. I got my vaccination shot booster right away. My motion is that we choose option A to read the SRD provides a regional grant and aid in the 2022 budget in the amount of 100,000 to Team Aeromedical and the first line of option C, which is just sending letter of support.
Second, Davis.
Director Davis, second, thank you. And for discussion.
And if I could just speak to it really quickly, actually, maybe if Sean could cover for me as I've got to zip out here momentarily. We all know about the golden hour in terms of medical emergencies. And I think this is a real gap in our region. And this is something I really believe in strongly that can save lives. And for that very reason, I'm supporting it. And on that note, goodbye.
Thank you, Director Kerr. And Director Moglove.
Thank you. So I do appreciate this particular opportunity, this group, and I do think it will be providing a very good service. However, in my view, it is totally outside our mandate. I would not be prepared to spend up to $100,000 on this program. I prefer option B because I think each municipality and area should be able to decide for themselves, but option A is on the table. I think this is way, way too much for the regional district to get involved in a project like this. There are so many other needs in our communities that could be subject to a grant and aid. And while we had an excellent presentation from this group, there are many other groups that are in need, whether it's on the housing front, whether it's on the long-term care front, whether it's on the home support front, all of which relate to health. So to be providing this group with $100,000, in my view, is absolutely way beyond what we should be providing. We have no idea what fundraising they have been able to accomplish from corporate sponsors, which will be their main fundraising opportunities. So I can't support this as presented. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Director Abram.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to echo Director Moglov's comments. I was going to ask, if we're talking about taking an amount of money out of general administration, we're doing that as a regional district, but yet there are 8 municipalities within our regional district, and then we have the 4 electoral areas. So, I'm assuming, I'm not sure what to call Cayuga Checklist municipality or First Nations government or whatever, but with all of those entities, it seems that each one, if they are interested in providing money in the way of a grant to this worthwhile effort, I would think that we could all look at doing that and provide what we feel we can afford. Each of us have each year different priorities and pressures in our own areas, whether it's Campbell River or Tassus or Area B or whatever. So I'd sooner see it go the way option B suggests, that it be done on an area by area basis, and that we look to trying to provide a number that will be sufficient in dollars to keep this organization viable and to be able to show other areas that we're willing to do our part, and we are hoping that they will do their part. We need to do that. We need to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. So I've got Director Adams, Baker, and Lee. And Mr. Smythe, I'm sorry, if there's a question, I'll ask you to speak, but you're not a director, so you can't speak until I ask you. So Director Adams.
Yeah, that's fair.
Thank you. Following along the lines of Director Abrams in that I think this is a great service and a great opportunity, but I would be more inclined to go with the under option A, the $50,000 amount. And that would show that the SRD is taking the lead and challenging other jurisdictions and agencies and corporations to match or exceed or put in what they can to ultimately reach that $350,000 goal. So I would be more inclined with a more modest amount to start and showing leadership for others to join in. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adams. And Director Baker.
For me, I agree with Director Kerr. I think $100,000 from the SRD is reasonable. I think it's responsibility for the SRD in this joint process. So to me, I believe $100,000 is warranted. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree 100% with Director Moglove. This is a very deserving application. However, there are many deserving groups out there that are working and volunteering on our behalf in the region. Campbell River Search and Rescue, for one, that's been trying to establish their own center and build a building. And I believe that unless we have discussions and solid policy on how we would address the floodgates that we could be opening to other groups to apply for thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, to come out of general administration or grants and aid, we need to have a solid policy and a function established that would set parameters on, maximum requisitions and how it's going to be administered, etc. So I believe that to be safe, we should be referring this issue to our 2022 budget discussions in January with, possible recommendations coming out regarding policy changes that we need to make to ensure that, that we are administering our finances, our public finances fairly to all the groups, not just this one. It shouldn't be, the first one in line gets all the money.
Okay.
We need to have a policy. So I would like to move a referral motion to the January 2022 budget discussions.
Second by Director Moglove.
Do we have a speaking order first before referral?
No, once refer comes on. Well. Yeah, we have a motion and a seconder on the floor now. So let's go through this.
But I'm referring it to
Okay,
January.
I want to go through the speakers list first.
Okay.
I've got Director Cornfield, Colburn, and Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I liked what Director Adams said. If we do it now, that would be on a general administration. So a lot of the cost would be borne by the city of Campbell River, would it not? Do we know what our percentage is?
Mike can correct me, but I think it's high 60s. It's 68, 69.
Can we call it 70% just for ease of looking at the numbers?
Okay.
So if 35,000 of that would be paid by the city of Campbell River, 15,000 would be split between the other 4 remaining cities or municipalities, because we only have 5, not 8. And we have 4 electoral areas, plus we have Cayuga-Tuckasit, correct? And I tend to favor support of this type of a program because it provides, we've got a lot of remote communities, we've got resorts out there, we have recreation areas, we have all kinds of things happening, fish farms and logging camps and mines. They could all utilize this, and I'm sure they will all contribute, but I think it's important that we at least don't impede it. And I think that if we don't do something, that's just means we're doing nothing. And I think that this service should be considered.
Okay, and I'll go Director Colburn.
So, I understand the importance of this service and that it is a valuable and needed service that may be unfunded or underfunded. I would be interested in knowing, you know, what the other, well, first of all, what they're considering North Island when they're broaching into North Island. Some people's opinion of North Island is Nanaimo and North, and some people's opinion is Campbell River and North. So I'd be interested in knowing, you know, what is the pot that they were looking from, and also what others are contributing. Mount Waddington, of course, is north of us, so I know that they would be included in that expansion to the north. But these are all kind of questions that I have. I do think it is a regional grant in the fact that it's because of all of the large area that we have, that our geographical area is. And also, you know, what kind of corporate sponsorship things that they are pursuing. So I don't know if referral includes, I know that someone will make that motion, has made that motion, and I don't know if any of that would be included in, you know, a report that would come back, or if the person on the line who is the representative may include that with more information, or how that's going to work. But these are all just questions I have before supporting this motion. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Director Evans.
Thank you. And I know that we've got a motion on the floor to refer this to January. But for myself as well, I certainly hear what Director Adams was saying in terms of a dollar value. I would feel more comfortable at a dollar value at that level. But then when I ask myself, but why? I realize I have a lot of questions too. And our municipality just went through 2 years of really struggling to determine who received funding. And that's because we had a similar situation to what we have today, where someone did a great presentation, the need is there, but there are competing needs in the region and the community. There's other needs as well. And so we did put a policy in place. We have found out after 2 years, it has some holes in it as well. But at least it gave us direction when we're looking at opportunities like this to determine whether or not this was something that had moved through the process, that we had seen, for example, funding reports, that there was a clear strategy for fundraising, that other initiatives were in place to be able to help us determine whether or not this was a viable company. I'm not suggesting this isn't a viable company, but I don't have the answers for some of the questions that typically I would ask before supporting any amount of funding that would be donated that would come from general. So it concerns me that I don't have those answers. So I certainly would support the motion that is on the floor. But I guess the other question that I have is in terms of this particular initiative, it does not preclude that the city of Campbell River would not also provide funding. And finally, my sense is also that I would like to know the level of industry support. I would like to see a list of industry representatives that had already committed to this. Typically, when we come on board, it is because there's already been demonstrated proof that that fundraising has been given to a certain level. So in moving this as a referral till January, I would hope that some of those questions would be answered. I'm not expecting answers today. I'm expecting to have that in a report that would be provided as additional information. Thank you.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
answer a lot of those questions.
No, sorry, Sean, no. So I got Director Adams and Baker and Lee all with hands up. Is this new?
Oh, no, my hand's down.
Go. So there's no more discussion on, there's a motion to refer to January. I'll call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Opposed.
Director Adams is opposed?
Yep.
Baker's opposed.
Baker's opposed? Cornfield's opposed? Carried. Thank you. Dr. Mogulov?
Subsequent, with this referral to January, there was a variety of questions that were asked that I think various directors would like answered. And I'm not sure if staff was able to capture most of those questions, i.e., I think Director Evans talked about what's the level of corporate support at the moment. There was question of what other regional districts, if any, in the North Island are contributing. I've lost track of, so those are a couple of the questions. So I think that's important if we're going to move forward, that the questions that have been raised today are somehow answered before we move forward.
So, Mr. Chair, the meeting is recorded, so we'll just play back a recording. We'll extract the questions and we'll make sure we touch base with Team Air Medical to get those answers.
And one more thing, if directors had any other questions they hadn't thought of today because this motion wasn't presented ahead of time, is it possible to email staff with any other questions they might have in anticipation?
Sure.
In a timely manner, yes. Okay, thank you.
I apologize, Mr. Chair, but can I answer a lot of those questions?
No,
now
I'm
to
sorry you
save your
can't.
Staff time.
No, I'm sorry you can't. They're directed to staff. They're not directed to you, I'm afraid. On to number 5. Bill 26.
Okay, Mr. Chair, may I just ask one more on the last issue that was referred on the questions to be asked of staff? What I'm concerned about is having, if we go with a regional grant policy, having a policy that is fair to all potential applicants. You know, having and that protects the regional district's interests, so that we don't open the floodgates to numerous similar requests. We need to know what the policy is on that function too.
Yeah, Director.
That's my question.
Yeah, we're not even at the.
We're not there.
Not there yet.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 5. Bill 26, Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act Number 2, 2021. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Mogulov, Director Lee, and the ADCO.
Nothing from staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay, on receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried.
I have my hand up.
No,
Mr. Chair,
your
I have
hand's
my
not
hand
up, sir.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's not.
Well, it says here it is.
I don't see it.
Okay, let me try
There
it
it
again.
is. It was just delayed.
That's weird. It's bouncing up and down saying it's up.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it up?
No, it's not.
Is my hand up?
No, it's not.
All right, how about
Now it is.
There it is.
how about now it is?
Okay, go ahead.
It's working opposite. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that so this Bill 26 basically is sort of turns things around from what we are used to, where we can waive a public hearing if we like, but it is saying that a public hearing will be waived if the bylaw, the regulatory bylaw, complies with the OCP. So I had a very long conversation with Josie Osborne. Just to be clear, she's a good friend of mine. I've known her for years, and asked for some clarification on this. And she said that it's absolutely up to us if we want a public hearing on any public hearing, whether it complies or doesn't comply. All we have to do is include it in our motions at the board, where we usually have, if there's a bylaw, we say, you know, move first, move second, move third, et cetera, and then we set a public hearing. All we have to do is say in that motion that we would like to have a public hearing for that particular item, and the public hearing will be completely honored. And that I asked, does that need to be, you know, a resolution of the board or whatever? And she said that you can do it however you like, or you can just send her staff. She mentioned Tara, or it could be, or she said, or me, meaning, you know, Josie, to let her know that there's two things. There's this one, and then there's another one coming up later. That is the direction that we would like to go as a regional district, and that would be fine with her.
Okay.
So certainly in Area C, we are going to want public hearings unless it is something so minuscule that it doesn't matter, which doesn't happen very often here. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand that this is not totally prescriptive. It is somewhat enabling. And the enabling is, if we want public hearings, we just have to tell them.
Okay, thank you. Director Komolov.
Yes, I just want to thank Director Rabin for that clarification. It is contained in the report very clearly that that is in fact the case, that it just reverses the requirement so that proposals will not proceed to a public hearing unless specifically authorized by resolution of the local government. That's what our report says. So it doesn't waive it automatically. It's still up to the local government.
Thank you. Director Cornfield.
Well, just to hopefully keep Director Moglove happy. Yeah, it does say that. Proceed unless it's authorized by resolution of the local government. That does not mean authorized by electoral area, A, B, C, or D. It means if this board, which is the local government, authorizes it, then it can occur. I have a lot of problems with what the government has put in their notice. They don't answer to the people that are affected or impacted by it. We do. We do as municipal politicians, and we do it as elected directors. We're the ones that take the heat. And I think the way it's written is wrong. It hasn't been a problem in the past, except when it doesn't fit with somebody's particular way of them wanting to do business. There's a reason why we do official community plans, why we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and get it right, involve countless thousands of hours of our constituents in doing that, and to put the onus on the other part, no, I disagree. And I certainly disagree with, I've seen how certain elements of official community plans can be cherry-picked to say, ooh, is it consistent with the plan? Sure. Does it have to be 90% consistent? If there's 5 or 6 different criteria that are in there, do you have to move all 6? Does it have to be consistent with all 6? Or is 3 good enough? This thing, the true issues are in the details, and that's the regulations when they come out in the spring. But I think this is just another case of provincial government interfering with local government. stay at home.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. I've got Director Lee and Anderson, so Director Lee.
Oh, thank you. Yes, the only time that I've ever waived, asked the board to waive a public hearing in my area was when I thoroughly advertised the issue and made sure that the public were not objecting to the idea, that it was accepted. And then there's no point in taking it to public hearing. We can save our staff time and money. And that's only been once, I think, in the last 30 years. And otherwise, I think all land use issues should go to the public, and it does affect communities. And the only thing I agreed with that Director Cornfield said was that we have to wait till the regulations come out to see how this new statute will be applied. So we don't have the details yet.
Correct.
And Director Abram has indicated that it's not going to change things much, but, I'd like to see the regulations first.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson.
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to let the board know, and it might come out in budget discussions or perhaps not, that the Electoral Area Service Committee has decided to not fund a planning position that would do long-range planning updates. So most of our official community plans and zoning bylaws are decades old, and we're just not even funding the possibility of their updates anymore. We've struggled to update them anyway, but now we're not even pretending to fund the possibility thereof.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, point of order, that's completely off this topic.
Yeah.
Well, it is
Completely off the topic of Bill 26.
It is not, because Bill 26 speaks to the ability of a local government to waive public hearings, assuming that official community plans are really reflective of the communities. And I think that that's actually
Completely
potentially
off topic, Mr. Chair.
enabling move. And I would support that in some circumstances when indeed the community has gone to extensive effort in the recent years to have an OCP that reflects their values. I think this is very valuable. I just wanted the board to know that's not really the case in rural areas here. Thanks.
Thank you. So I have other hands up, second time speakers. New information discussion. We're on receipt. We're only on receipt. Director Abram, do you have something new?
Yes, I do. The conversation that just took place was totally inappropriate in that OCPs are policy documents.
Okay, let's.
Regulation.
Director Abram, yeah, I'm going to cut it off. We're repeating everything's been said. If there's no new stuff, Director Adams, do you have something new?
Well, the only thing new is we have a policy of order of conduct, and I find Director Anderson's comments completely inappropriate when there is the will of the board, whether that's the Electoral Area Services Board, and to try to preempt that of a decision that was already made is completely inappropriate.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
I mean,
so on receipt.
No way preempting. I'm just offering information to.
Excuse me, we're on receipt. I'm calling question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Carried. There's no motion. On to number 6. 2022-2026 financial plan. Motion receive.
Move receipt.
Director Colburn, Director Evans, and I'll go to CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom will speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report before the board today is essentially asking the board to consider an assistant position for Sean, who, if board directors are not aware, is basically working 100 hours a week as the emergency services coordinator. And I'm embellishing that a little bit, but Sean basically is stretched very thin. with a number of things that he's asked to do. And not that he's complaining, but we are concerned that at some point, it's going to have to break. And so we do believe that it's appropriate to provide some assistance for him. He does an awful lot for the regional district and pulls in an awful lot of grant funding for the different things that he involves us in. And so.
Receipt or on B? Who's on? Tom's on. Nope. There we go. Sorry for delay. Okay, so on received report, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seen none carried. And item B,
Move the recommendation B.
moved by Director Lee, second by Director Moglove. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
If anybody on our staff deserves an administrative assistant to help with the workload, it is Sean Koopman. He has been a brick with emergency services and is supplying our communities with, you know, just everything that we ask for, writing grant and aid applications, supplying equipment, training, making sure people are trained. He's just been a stellar employee who's working way too hard and he needs help. So I totally support the recommendation.
Gil? Any further discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seen none carried. Item 7, fuel rationing. Motion received report from CO. Director Colburn, Director Cornfield, thank you, and CO, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add to this.
Okay, on receipt.
Question.
Question, Director Wally, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a question to staff. If I want to take my truck and trailer down to pick up a load of hay for livestock, do I need one of these permits to do that, to get some fuel to do it?
I suppose we would need to designate that vehicle as an essential vehicle. I suppose we could, but I'm not sure that falls under the criteria.
Well, that was my question. Does it or doesn't it? Because it takes a lot of fuel to drive.
I think more the intent of this is that for staff vehicles and equipment, that we can designate those if necessary.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Abram.
Okay, going along the same lines, as essential vehicles, it's not a vehicle of the regional district, but it's my vehicle. And I have a very large electoral area that I cannot even get to one end from where I live on 30 liters, let alone get home. So I would assume that that letter that is talked about in there would apply, that I would be able to get that letter. And if I need to go to Bold Point, or I need to go to Granite Bay or Hoskin Channel for any of the, my constituents' needs, or over to Surge Narrows, that I would be allowed to show that letter at the gas station and get more than 30 liters. Is that correct, Mr. CAO?
Again, I don't think that's the intent, really. That I wouldn't believe the province considers that essential vehicle designation. We're talking about vehicles and equipment that are used for essential safety liability issues. I don't believe the intent was so directors could drive around their constituency.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair, I believe if I could, Mr. Chair, just one subsequent. If we are elected to represent an area that is larger than 30 liters, will allow, then I would assume that you would have to say that it was essential that I have fuel to get there and back. How else can I possibly do my job? And that's what this is about, is essential services, as I read the part about the letter, not about, I've seen vehicles that have a sign on them that say essential vehicle. And, they're work trucks, for road repair, things like that. I'm not a road repair truck, but I do have to go to those areas. So, and I'm, Director Wally, even to get to a board meeting or whatever, if he came to board meetings, or any of the West Coast directors, to be able to do their job, they have to be able to travel greater distances than 30 liters will allow them. So I'd like some clarification on that. If staff could please get that clarification and report to us at the next meeting.
If that's the board's will, again, staff take direction of the board. I don't believe that that's what the province meant by essential travel. I think road repair, emergency services, traveling to this meeting is not essential as we have a backup. It would be hard to argue that a director needs greater than 30 liters when we have an avenue for them to meet remotely. So again, Director Abram, I don't believe what you're talking about for a director is essential travel. However, if it's the board's will, we can get clarification on that.
Okay, I have other speakers.
Okay, so I'd move.
Hang on, I've got other speakers. We've already got a motion on the floor. I've got other speakers, Director Abram. I got Director Baker, then I got Director Colburn, or Cornfield.
From what I, excuse me, so from what I understand, if you, for example, fill up your 30 liters in Sayward and you run out of fuel or you're low when you hit Campbell, you are allowed, are you not, to stop and take another 30 liters at a gas station from there to ensure you're home?
Yes, you are.
So I don't think it's necessary to really get that clarification, because wherever you stop, if there's a gas station, there's nothing regulating and flagging your vehicle that you already filled up that day, in my opinion. Thank you.
Gil? Director Colburn, or Cornfield.
As long as you pay in cash, I guess there's no paper trail. I have a serious question, and that's if, and it would fall under municipal services, I guess, but if there was a conference or meeting, say in Nanaimo. So yes, you're compensated for your expenses to attend the meeting, but if it's an official sanctioned meeting, would that not fall under the definition of municipal services? And then the gas, because yeah, you're compensated for your vehicle and everything, but if you can't buy more than 30 liters of gas per day, you won't make it home.
It's per stop.
Again, my interpretation is it's 30 liters at a time. So if I go to a meeting one way, I can still purchase 30 liters the other way. I think it gets down to the need for essential. If you're talking about going to a meeting and there's an alternative to do it virtually, I think it's hard to argue that that meeting is essential. So I'm not sure what kind of travel we're talking about, but I think we're getting lost in the fact that this is for essential travel. I'm not sure what I've heard from Director Abram falls under the definition of essential travel.
If I may speak to that,
So
Mr. Chair.
The other thing is, now are we supposed to fill out a form, which is the certification letter and language, which would accompany any one of our vehicles if they go to a gas station? Is that what we have to do to ensure our part?
Mr. Chairman, just so there's no confusion here, we're not talking in any way, shape, or form about any privileges other than the ability to stop at a fuel station and take more than 30 liters of fuel, period. That's all we're talking about. It's nothing to do with reimbursement of costs or anything along those lines. It's simply the ability for the regional district to allow or to designate certain vehicles that it considers to be essential, providing essential services within the region, to be allowed to fill up with more than 30 liters at a time. That's all it is about.
If I can, Mr. If I can, I'm just trying to clarify that, is would we be expected to certify different vehicles from other people that operate in the regional district, or are we only talking about our regional district fleet? And my understanding is that it would be up to us to provide a letter for inclusion with the regional district vehicle, so that if an employee is out, needs more than 30 liters, they're able to do that without having to question and validate and do a bunch of other work. So that's my understanding of what this whole process is about. Am I correct?
Yes, just for clarification, the legislation allows the CAO to designate vehicles that, and people, I assume, that need to put more than 30 liters of fuel in there. So whoever that be, there would be some kind of justification, and then we would provide that individual with a letter, and they could take it to a fill station, and that says that they're allowed to put more than 30 liters in there. So it would be a letter that goes with a person that is going to do a certain task that requires them to have more than 30 liters of fuel. So again, this delegates that authority to me, that you say, look, I need to go to, Victoria, Zabalis, whatever it be, and I would write a letter that says, this individual is authorized, by the legislation that's provided to me, that you could put more than 30 liters of fuel in there.
Just a quick, kind of example of this. I don't have a designation on my vehicle. There is WAS and Zayward. There are gas stations that we can do that. However, people that I know that are contractors that are doing work for the village, in case they're doing really early morning deliveries or late at night deliveries that could run the risk of running out of gas, then that would be an exemption, because that's an essential vehicle that would have a risk of not having a gas station, right? So that's, I think, how our village office has gone about our kind of business. Or alternatively, people that are carrying loads of groceries for 4 families, things like that. So I think that that's essential for my understanding.
Okay, thank you. And if I'm correct, I've got Director Wally and Director Abram as second-time speakers. Director Wally?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't take my hand down.
Okay, so Director Abram, you're got something new?
Yes, I do. Director Baker gave a good example of, you can fill up in Sayward, drive to Campbell River, fill up in Campbell River, and drive home. We don't have a gas station at Granite Bay. We don't have a gas station at Hoskin Channel. I'm sorry, I cannot drive even to one of those places on 30 liters. And I do have essential work at times to be done at those locations that cannot be done by Zoom. They don't have internet. Okay, so I don't know why we're arguing about this. This is silly. This can be left up to the CAO to determine, is it important for me to go to meet with a group of constituents at one of those places where I have no opportunity to buy gas, or to go to Hoskin Channel Landing to go by boat, then another half an hour boat ride to Surge Narrows to go to an annual general meeting. That's considered by them to be essential that I'm there. So my vehicle, as far as I'm concerned, is my only transit. And I can't get gas other than at the beginning of the trip. So I would need 60 or 70 liters in my pickup to be able to make that trip, round trip. So all this does is allow the CAO to look at the situation and say, yep, that works, and it's reasonable, and it's essential. And you give the guy a letter,
okay,
whether it's me or anybody else.
Okay, thank you. And I think the key word here to all our directors is essential service. Okay.
Call the question.
Questions on receipt? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. On to B, the CEO be authorized to issue certification letters on behalf of the regional district with respect to the current fuel rationing order by Director Moveland moves B. Seconder.
Second.
Goulburn.
Second.
Call question on motion. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 8, Royal Canadian Legion, Sayward. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, seconder.
Second.
Director Lee, anything to add, CEO?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair. I think Director Wally probably has an option to move.
Okay. So on receipt then, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion that Edith has. I'd move that the regional district enter into an agreement with the Sayward branch of the Royal Canadian Legion to access the electoral area A gas tax fund to the amount of $50,000.
Do I have a seconder?
Second, Abram.
Just a question, is this a electoral area only vote, or is it a total board vote? Just curious.
It's a full board vote. Any other discussion?
If I could just speak to that, Mr. Chair.
Director Wally.
Thank you. The Legion in Sayward has been a multi-generation facility that provides all kinds of functions for the Sayward Valley, and it is in need of some repair. And I have an abundance of gas tax money available, and this is one of the services I can do to my community, and I think it'd be a great benefit for Sayward.
Thank you, Director Wally. I don't see any other hands up. I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on that. Yeah, I totally support the motion, but a comment was made that this board vote. I'm just questioning as to why that would be the case when the gas tax is allocated on an electoral by electoral area basis. So that would be electoral area money that is being distributed to an agency within the electoral area. Why would that be a full board vote?
Okay, well, nobody
I'm not
opposed.
arguing with it, I'm just asking.
Okay, nobody opposed the vote anyways, but I'll go to Mr. Yates.
This is for clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So all board votes regarding the signing of agreements, even though it's to use gas tax funds, have in the past, and I believe correctly, been decided by the entire vote, and that is the Local Government Act default for voting on all agreements. And so that was my suggestion to the chair today, was that even though it's to look at preparing that agreement, I still believe it's a full board vote in order to move forward on that. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, item 9, Partial Tax Rollover Review Panel. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Move receipt.
Raleigh and Lee. CEO, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, unless Tom wants to speak to this.
He says no. Okay, on receipt then. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seen none, carried. Item B, the Director Abram, Director Lee, and Director Wally be appointed as the members of the Partial Tax Roll Review Panel for 2022.
So moved.
Director Lee, second.
Second, Baker.
Director Baker, any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Director
Chair, I have
Abram,
my hand up.
go ahead.
Yeah, just, there's only 3 directors that can be appointed to this. It seems like filling in the blanks prior to the meeting would be clearer to all directors and the public. But those are the directors that will be on there.
Super, thank you. Call question, and anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried, and see that.
Move C, Evans.
Thank you, Director Evans.
Second,
Dr. Wally. Any discussion? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Bylaw 385 rezoning application, RZ 1C20 Wilson. Motion receive.
Proceed. Abram.
Second.
Second by Director Wally. See anything to add?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Nothing to add. On receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, the report to public hearing bylaw 385 together with all supporting documentation be received.
Move B. Abram.
Thank you.
Second.
Lee, thank you. Discussion? Question on B, all in favor? Sorry, anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, bylaw 385 be given third reading. Abram?
Second.
Lee, thank you. No discussion. Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item D, the bylaw 385 being Quad Island Zone bylaw 1990 amendment number 133 be now considered finally passed and adopted.
Move D. Abram.
Abram, second.
Wally.
Director Wally. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Bylaw 424 rezoning application RZ 1C21 Chan. Motion to receive the report. Wally and Lee, I believe. CEO, anything to add?
No, not me. I didn't open.
Abram.
Abram, go. CEO, anything to add? He says no. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item B, the report of public hearing 424 together with all supporting document be received. Abram and Wally, I think. Gil, any discussion? See none, call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item C, the bylaw 424 be third reading.
Move C. Abram.
Abram,
Second.
Second.
Wally, Gil, discussion, Director Anderson.
Thank you. I just wondered if the director for the area wanted to comment on the one letter I believe that we received that spoke to concerns about really privatizing one of the few safe anchorages around, if not for enough, but that caught my attention.
I'd be glad to comment. The letter was prior to the application being changed. It was 2 bays that were being looked at. Planning can correct me if I'm wrong. And it was reduced to one small portion of 1 bay. So I don't believe the letter actually applies.
Okay,
I appreciate the response. Thank you.
Thank you. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item D, 424, bylaw 1990 be moved.
Second.
Abram and Wally. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Third bylaw 448, financial plan amendment. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Joe, Colburn, aye, Lee and Colburn, thank you. And CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Mike will speak to this.
Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, this is a more or less a housekeeping issue. We're just amending the financial plan for everything that's been approved by the board throughout the year, and then we've cited those in the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item B, bylaw 448 being the bylaw to amend 2021-2025 financial plan. Be now 210-1, all directors be now introduced for the first time.
Move first.
Colburn and Lee, any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, the rules be suspended for bylaw 448 to give second and third.
Move second and third.
Director Lee, Director Colburn. Don't see any discussion. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item D, the bylaw 448 be 2021-2025 pump financial plan be finally passed and adopted.
Move adoption.
Director Colburn and Director Lee. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Correspondence, we have 2 items.
Move 1 and 2.
Motion to move 1 and 2 by Director Colburn, second by Director Cornfield. Discussion? Question called. Anyone opposed? Carried. Members report, Marine Plan Partnership. Motion to receive the report. Director Cornfield, Director Abram. Anything to add, Director Abram?
No, that's good. It's self-explanatory.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seen none, carried. No new. Denman, old growth forest management. Motion to receive the report. Director Cornfield.
Evans.
Director Evans, thank you, and the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a letter that the board directed Director Cornfield to help support staff with. He has produced the letter and it's before you for any comments, I suppose.
Any discussion? Director Abram?
Yeah, just that I'm sure that it is an excellently written letter because it was done by Director Cornfield, who is an expert in the field of forestry. However, I have 2 problems. One being that this came to us as an addendum item. It's 10 pages long. It's extremely detailed, and I don't believe it is worthy of, it's not giving its due justice to the letter to throw it onto an agenda at the last minute as an addendum item. And secondly, that I can't support it from the first line written by the chair, that the ecosystems are what keep us alive, and they're what are doing, and we are doing our best in all fields to destroy them. EBM has been effectively in use for 2 decades, and it's been proven to be a sound practice. So I can't, just on that statement, I can't support this letter.
Okay, thank you. We're still on receipt. And it's only a 1-page letter.
Yeah, so just for clarity, I'm not sure what Director Abram's looking at, but the letter that was written by Director Cornfield and put under the chair's name is barely over a page.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
and Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this came out of Municipal Services Committee, I believe. I can't support this letter personally, just because for myself as mayor, I have had input into various strategies. The old growth TSA review that was in 2020, old growth strategic review panel. I actually came to Campbell River with my CAO to speak to that, and we followed up with a letter. I've spoken with both ministers, Donaldson and Conroy, regarding the issues around old growth and how rapidly it's disappearing and how we need to move more towards better usage, because myself, having worked in the forest industry for 40 years, I've seen phenomenal amounts of waste, and we can get a lot more value out of the wood when we don't stack up large amounts of it and burn it, which I've actively worked within myself. So I just find a lot of the content of this letter disingenuous, and I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. And Director Evans.
Thank you. And I just wanted to speak to a couple of points on the letter related to a conversation that we had yesterday as part of our quarterly resource sector meetings, and this was with the forestry industry. And there were 2 very key points that they asked us to address. Number 1, although it infers it in the last paragraph to get people around the table, I think we need to be much more blunt than what's being proposed there. So I'm suggesting that we identify who we want around the table, to be much more specific in that, excuse me, but also that what they're asking is that there is an opportunity for a socio impact study. And again, it sort of talks about it here in the letter, but I think we need to be much more clear. And sorry, I just have low battery, so it keeps coming in and out. Excuse me. So I would ask very specifically for both of those items. I see them being not quite as direct as a resolution, but much more clear than is indicated in this letter. Just a recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And on receipt still, Director Lee?
In the short time that I had to do some research on this, looking up what the BC government might have been thinking when they made this declaration, I found that the declaration is just a declaration. Old growth logging has not stopped because of this declaration, and the provincial government are following the law under their responsibilities for reconciliation with First Nations, and they are first asking for First Nations input within 30 days, and that's because of the Judicial Review Act has a time limit on it of 30 days, and that's the length of time that the Judicial Review Act allows First Nations to, under the Indigenous Peoples Act, that to respond. So I think they're just following the law in making this declaration. However, old growth logging has not stopped. And the chief, the Grand Chief Steward of the BC Assembly of First Nations has stood up and said that, you know, old growth has not stopped because of the old growth logging has not stopped because of this declaration. And so I think we need to get some more information about what are the next steps for the communities to be consulted after the First Nations. Then what was the response from the First Nations to the referral? There's some more things. I just didn't have time. I wrote down 4 pages of notes from, you know, just going online and looking it up and trying to figure out what was going on with it. I just feel like as an addenda item, is this way too big an issue to properly research in the short time I had.
Okay.
So I would like to refer it to January.
We're on receipt.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else on receipt? I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried.
I was
on B.
I wouldn't.
There's item B is the December 7th letter regarding old growth forest management be sent to the Premier BC and Ministry of Forest. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Director Cornfield moves.
Second.
Second, Director Adams. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to
Director Mogul first. Okay, Director Lee, go ahead.
I would like to refer this to our next meeting in January so that we can conduct more research on exactly what is going on with this. I don't think the declaration meant anything. I don't think it changed any regulations.
Motion on, please. Just put your motion on.
I'll second.
Yeah, move to refer to our first meeting in January, this letter.
Thank you. Seconder?
I seconded it already.
Moved and seconded. Okay. I'll call question on refer. Anyone opposed?
Cornfield's opposed.
Baker's opposed.
Moglove is opposed.
Adams opposed.
Smythe
Evans
opposed.
opposed.
Wally's opposed.
Okay, we got to slow down and back. So we got.
He's right there.
Yeah. So you got Director Cornfield, Director Moglove, Director Adams. We just have to wait. Sorry, Director Smythe, or Councillor Smythe, you don't get a vote.
Yes, I do. I'm standing in for Councillor Kerr,
No, you're not an alternate.
as he said in the meeting.
No, he didn't say that.
No.
He's appointed as an alternate.
Ron was here.
Ron left the meeting, he didn't say,
He does as well.
Yeah, I didn't hear Director Kerr say anything about Mr. Smythe being his alternate in the meeting. My understanding is he was there for any discussions on the team item only. So from there,
Invited on the team item, if I could clarify.
no.
And then when he had
no,
to leave for his shot,
No,
he said he would
sorry,
be in his.
we're done. Hang on. We're done.
The chair's call.
Yeah.
Let the chair speak.
The chair's spoken. I'm not recognizing Mr. Smythe as part of the meeting. So I'm going to go back to opposed, and I don't know, just try and go a little slower. We had Director Cornfield opposed, Director Moglove opposed, Director Baker's opposed, Director Adams opposed, and that's as far as I got.
Wally was opposed.
Wally's opposed,
Evans is opposed.
Evans opposed, Unger's opposed. Seven out of 13 then. So it's carried. So it's defeated. Ron's not here, so you got 13. So 7 out of 13 is defeated.
Do we not have 14 members on our board?
We have 14 members on the board and one is not here. So that leaves you 13. Correct?
Mr. Chairman, my records show 7 directors opposed. There cannot be a majority in support of the referral motion on the basis. However, if you wish to poll the directors and confirm that.
Okay, we'll pull the directors.
The motion is to refer.
Okay, so Director Wally,
Opposed.
Director Anderson,
In favor.
Director Abram,
In favor of referral.
Director Lee,
In favor?
Director Adams,
Opposed.
Director Evans,
Opposed.
Director Moglove,
Opposed.
Director Cornfield,
Opposed.
Unger's opposed, Director Baker,
Opposed.
Director Davis,
In favor.
Director Colburn,
Favor.
defeated. Back to item B, that the December 7, 2021 letter regarding Old Growth Forest Management be sent to the Premier and the Ministry of Forest.
So I have that moved by Cornfield, second by Adams.
Cornfield and Adams first and second, or moved and seconded. Speakers, Director Moglove.
Yeah, thank you. So I didn't speak on receipt because I thought my comments made more sense when we're deciding whether to approve this letter or not. At the Municipal Services Committee meeting, I fully supported writing this type of a letter to the Premier and Minister of Forest because I think this issue is very, very important to our communities. And that's one of the reasons I voted against the referral or deferral, whatever. I think this, now having said that, the gist of what the letter was supposed to talk about is identified on page 1 of our report, and those were the themes identified by Director Cornfield at the Municipal Services Committee, i.e., lack of consultation and engagement with local government, lack of substantive assessment of local economic impact, lack of substantive assessment of social impact to communities, and unidentified provincial support for offsetting job losses and economic impacts. In my view, the letter that has been drafted goes further than that, especially in the first paragraph. And so that's where my concern is. The part that I'd like the best about the letter is the second paragraph that talks about an actual template that has been successful in this type of an issue, i.e. a resource sector issue where, and that's the Broughton salmon aquaculture issue. To me, that is the template on which consultation on this forestry issue should have been based. But my concern is that this letter, in my view, goes beyond what had been talked about at the municipal services level. I will likely still support the letter. I just raise that as an issue because I do think this issue, and in particular the lack of consultation, and you know, it's not necessarily the local government, it's the lack of consultation with industry. That is the key. We had our sector yesterday, our resource sector, and the passion and the, I don't know what the word is, that not being consulted on this issue when the representatives of industry want to be part of the solution and to be completely left out of this process is totally and utterly unacceptable. So I will support this letter, but I just wanted to point, I feel it goes a little bit too far on that aspect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I've got hands up, and I just want to check and see if your hands up are on this issue or not. Director Jules.
Sorry, no, my hand's not up.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't disagree entirely with lack of consultation, and speaking to that, the first paragraph, I absolutely cannot support. The health of the people of British Columbia is inextricably linked to the health of our ecosystems and our forests. I would like to be writing a letter that really commends the decisions that have been made, but I know this board will never write that. So the best I can do here is to just speak in opposition to sending this letter at this time.
Okay, thank you. Director Evans.
Thank you. And I support definitely sending this letter. I just, I'm going to make these comments again, hopefully a little bit more evident when we look at paragraph, I think that's paragraph 3, it does talk about the economic impact. It actually talks about socioeconomic impact throughout the entire letter, but it just doesn't put it in the words of socioeconomic. So I don't know if this would go beyond what we had agreed as a municipality. I keep flipping back between the two, but asking for a report is, or evidence, if we don't feel comfortable asking for a report, certainly evidence of the socioeconomic impact, I think is justified to be asked in this letter. And it's certainly in the way that it is written would just bring a bit more clarity to it. And again, I come back to the fact that when we make this statement, we urge you to hit the reset button, involve the people most impacted, and take the time to do it. I think there's an opportunity here to be more clear in what we are asking. So if there was a way to identify who we feel needs to be, needs to be sitting around that table, I think it's important to clarify that greater. So for me, the letter is just more about clarification of what our intent is and what action we are asking the Premier to take. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I've got Director Abram, Colburn, and Wally.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to echo some of the comments of Director Anderson about the environmental aspects of the letter, same with Director Davis. And Director Moglove, started out with the first paragraph, which was exactly what I talked about at the very beginning, that, it categorically says that ecosystem-based management, it's largely unproven management strategy. That is blatantly untrue. And we should not be sending information to the government asking the Premier to meet with us based on even one line, even one paragraph, one phrase within that line, not being totally correct. And this letter needs to be totally correct. I totally agree with much of it about support for change and support for partnerships, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but I don't really want to be cut off again on this particular management. This is extremely important to not only our economies in our communities, it's important to our world. This is our world, okay? Ecosystem-based management was based on trying to keep ecosystems working. And if we're going to have a healthy forestry industry, we need to have a very healthy environment. And I don't believe that sending this letter is going to do that. So I cannot support sending this letter the way it is now. It could be altered, and it could, if it had been referred back, a few words could have been changed to make it affordable, but it wasn't. So that's, you know, the fault of the board for not referring it back, and that's all I can say. But I cannot support it the way it is now. It is not in favor of keeping our ecosystems alive.
Okay, thank you. Director Colburn.
Thank you, and I echo much of really what Director Moglov, some of what Director Abrams was saying. I agreed at the MSC to send this letter, and I think that it does have a lot of really good points in it. I think that it, you know, in some of the paragraphs, really what we're looking for is for consultation and for meaningful consultation. And so I don't support it in this form, although I support a letter similar to it that maybe doesn't take as much of a wide view and really sticks to just the points that were in the report about the lack of consultation with government, in economic impact, social impact. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I was a manager of silviculture for 30 years, and I just want to point out to perhaps some directors feel that our old growth is irreplaceable. In the Campbell River area, we have lots of stands of OGMA, which stands for Old Growth Management Areas. Much of that old growth is only 60 years of age, and old growth is totally replaceable. All these new stands that we plant very quickly become old growth, and it's just a renewable resource at the whole basis of our ecosystem. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to call a question on the motion. Anyone opposed? Colburn.
Davis opposed.
Davis, Moglov. Anderson?
Yes, Anderson.
Cool.
Lee.
Okay, so I got Colburn, Davis, Moglov, Anderson, Lee.
Abram.
Abram.
I was muted.
Any more? Seeing none, motion's carried. Second item, TELUS Communication Tower, Cortez Island.
Motion is
received report.
carried. Mr. Chair, could you please explain just to clarify, what passed? To send the letter?
Yes.
Or not send the letter?
Send the letter.
No, to send the letter, that passed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. Second item, TELUS Communication Tower.
I'll move receipt of TELUS Communication correspondence.
Cool.
Second, Baker.
Adams and Baker, and the CAO. Sorry, Director Anderson.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just bringing up the item to see if there was anything else added other than what I sent in. I just haven't clicked on it since.
No, it's exactly what you sent in, Director Anderson.
Right. Great, thank you so much. So I don't need to belabor a bunch of history, but my memory is that we had a commitment from the federal government that they would not support, so that they would wait for our support for the erection of telecommunication towers, largely because of the Connected Coast Initiative, I would wager. And there were 3 towers proposed on Cortez and many throughout the region. TELUS is now proposing a tower on treaty land, Tla'amin treaty land, that is on Cortez Island. And I'm wondering if there are any other communities that are also experiencing TELUS proposed towers on either reserve or treaty land, because what I understand from this communique is that they're saying that the kind of public consultation that the regional district was wanting for the erection of these towers will no longer be required, and they'll be following just the federal guidelines, which is a much lower bar than what this board had wanted. For instance, people have found out about it on Cortez via a publication on Quadra. They're not even publicizing here on the island, so their efforts at reaching out to the public are very minimal. So my question really is the federal government's commitment to us to not support the erection of telecommunication towers without our support, does that still stand if it's on First Nation lands, which of course has a different governance and different planning authority? Because certainly the sentiments in this community doesn't change whether it's a quarter mile down the road on lands governed through the Regional District Planning Service or Tla'amin. So I haven't reached back out to TELUS on this one. Because I wanted to get information here from the board and see if there were other towers like this throughout the region and where we were at with our policy before I reached out. But I certainly do need to put out a public communique. So any information would be valuable. Thank you.
I'll go to the CEO.
So there are many, many communities throughout British Columbia and Canada that TELUS is locating telecoms towers on First Nations land. Basically, there's 2 rules of authority and governance. If it's on non-First Nation land, then the teleco has to consult and get the support and endorsement. If it is on First Nations land, you have no authority. Their guidelines for consultation are extremely minimal, and you have basically no say in it. So that's why you see the telecos locate so many of their towers on First Nations lands, because they have to respect the governance of First Nations and their requirement to consult. Just to give you a little bit of idea, their consultation radius is either 2 or 3 towers high. So if you lean those towers over 2 or 3 high, let's say they're 80 meters, 120 meters, their consultation radius is about 300 meters, which wouldn't even leave the First Nations land. So there's absolutely no requirement for them to consult local government or get their support for towers on First Nations land. And quite the opposite on non-First Nations land, again, they must receive local government support.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Director Abram, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Yes, I totally support Director Anderson's questions, comments, etc. about this, and I understand that there are 2 sets of rules. We went through that here on Quadra, and I believe it came down to the support of the local government was required for non-First Nations land, but not support for the tower on First Nations land, but that there still had to be consultation with the public.
Apparently
that was
not
my
anymore.
Understanding, and that was, well, when did that change? Because I know that they went on to the First Nations land at Drew Harbor, and there was a requirement to consult, but as Dave said, it was a ridiculously small amount, and so there wasn't any consultation because it didn't go off of the First Nations land.
Right. So TELUS is savvy enough that the location of their towers, when you take their 2 or 3 radiuses, will not leave the First Nations land. Therefore, there's no duty to consult outside the First Nations land.
Well, the part that's very sad about that is, first of all, we're going back to the old Indian Act, and we're saying that there's two separate peoples in the world, in our country. One of them have, their First Nation status, and one of them doesn't have First Nation status. Secondly, that the radius that they're using is the radius that is the most dangerous as far as the electromagnetic fields that are created. There's no problem if you stand next to the tower, but if you go out 300 meters, that's where the signal starts to hit the ground and where people will be affected by it if there is electromagnetic radiation problems, then that's where it's going to start. So the federal rules are absolutely absurd. And, I think one of the things that maybe we should bring back in January is a letter of, I don't know what you'd want to call it, but some sort of letter to the federal government.
Okay, we're still on receipt,
copy
Director
to the
Abram.
provincial government.
We're just on
Okay,
receipt.
so that would come later.
Okay, thank you. I got Director Wally, and go ahead. Oh, no more Director Wally. Director Anderson, you had something else to add in?
It was simply the same question again, which I didn't quite get answered. I'm fully aware that it's a different land use authority, and the savvy of TELUS for making this move is very clear. My question, and I expect the answer is no, but I just want to get really clear for the sake of my public, is the federal government's commitment to us to not erect towers without our consent as a regional district apply on First Nation land? I expect the answer is no, but I know that we'd had special relationship with them. TELUS isn't required to have First regional districts approval to erect towers generally, but I believe we have a special relationship with them through all of our Connected Coast projects. I'm just wanting to get abundantly clear that we have no say here. Is that true to your understanding, Mr. Leach?
That's what Mr. Leach is saying, yes.
Yeah, the answer is no.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other speakers. So a question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. Closed session. Report of CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Adams.
Second.
Director Lee, Adams and Lee. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item B, the closed meeting. Director Adams.
Yep, move B.
Second.
Director Lee. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Motion terminate.
Move
So
to
moved.
Lee and Adams, thank you. Anyone opposed? Carried. Sign off and sign back on for a quick closed.